and that is taking raw materials out of the continent without processing them. There's no value added of one form or another. When we are even told to exploit our comparative advantage, we produce more cotton, more coffees, more cocoa, only to find out that on the market, they say that we've created an international glut, and so we get less money. In the meantime, asking us to produce more cotton and so on, there are other countries that are producing what Ashok calls perverse subsidies. It's still going on, believe it or not. Now, if we want to unlock the future of Africa, we cannot afford to continue with this model. It has to change. And I hope that I better not take too much time, give my colleagues a chance to talk so that we can stress on some of these key issues that will make it possible for us to have better relationships with both the developed and the developing countries. We've talked a little bit about, say, energy. We've talked about agriculture, infrastructure, and health, and so on. I just want to remind you that as we speak, 1 square kilometer of the Sahara Desert will give you pretty close to 1.5 million barrels of oil, because you can collect solar energy from 1 kilometer square. And this has been proven, is being done. And incidentally, you've noticed of recent date, a lot of countries are trying to even buy land on the African continent to produce energy for the developed world. Enough said.
Thank you. I would like to, Eddie, our time is limited, but I would like to go around and ask Stefan Henningsson. I mean, from WWF's point of view, you have decided to partner with a lot of companies in order to get sustainability certified. And you think that is really an incentive that makes these companies move, or is that a counter-incentive that makes them do as good as they've been doing and they've been certified for now? That's my first question. My second question is, if you'd allow me, what are the opportunities for WWF to work, let's say, with entrepreneurs in Africa or entrepreneurs in Asia, instead of just working with the bigger companies?
Thank you. Yes, I think on the first question, when we talk about the incentive to work with certification, is certainly coming from the moral side of business, if you wish. It's the sustainability manager or the environmental manager, and from the role and the importance of transparency. And this is very, very important work. And WWF, of course, is very engaged in this in order to conserve biodiversity, and also in terms of some of the work also when it comes to related to climate change, for example. So I think that is very much steered from that side. When it comes to your other side, the other question, I mean, is the opportunity, the entrepreneurs. We from WWF are very much interested in working and engaging with business also on that side, and we've actually already as well, at least on the issues of climate change, which is where I'm an expert, so that's where I can talk on climate and innovation, engage with business. As the pilot that we did 2 years ago, we did a survey of all the climate innovations that were existing we then looked at Sweden, because we did the pilot there, and that's why I'm on this panel, I suppose. And we brought in experts in a jury, also from emerging economies, from China and India, to assess these innovations and whether they would work on emerging markets, and came up just with a list of 12. This was not saying, you know, these will be the ones that will grow big, but just showing that there is this enormous potential for growth that will get emissions to sink. And then we highlighted these. We did some calculations on what would these solutions, there was wind power, more efficient ways of building houses that are 85% more efficient than normal housing and so forth. If they would grow for the next 10 years in a fairly optimistic rate, how much emissions would they reduce on the global market? And they would reduce emissions at about 12 entrepreneurs, this was 600 million tons, which then for a country like where we presented this is 10 times the emission from a country. So it was sort of showing the importance of also looking into providing and taking away the barriers for growth entrepreneurs, the importance for venture capital to actually see the solutions coming from in this sector and seeing the growth of the clean tech sector as an opportunity for the future. The importance for government to realize, like government has done in Korea, to realize that maybe this is an area where you should spend 2% of GDP. And we've also done some other work with China Mobile, for example. We're releasing a report soon that is looking into, they're doing already 58 million tons of savings in 2009 in smart logistics, dematerialization, smart work, smart appliances, which is 5 times higher than their own emissions. So that's also an example of a kind of work where we're engaging from the entrepreneurial side, if I understood the question right.
Neil Hawkins, you with the Dow Chemical Company, I remember very well your operations when you went into a partnership with Cargill and started making plastics from starch, and then you exited from it. So I was always very intrigued. I know that the Japanese Teijin company in the end took over your shares there. And that is one avenue of going. Does it mean that you didn't believe in the future of the bioplastics from starch, or what happened? Because it was a very bold decision made by your company to move into it, and then of course it was a perhaps even bolder decision to get out of it.
Yeah, that particular venture produced a lot of great research and advanced the technology, but ultimately it was not economically successful. What I am very pleased to tell you, though, is that we actually are now building the largest renewable plastics plant in the world, which will be in Brazil. That's been announced a couple of years ago, that will take sugarcane through to polyethylene, which is the largest plastic in the world. So we by no means have abandoned our pursuit of renewables. In fact, we're pursuing them very strongly. If I could just
may I just ask you the question? Ethanol does not compete with food. Was that an argument that was helpful? Because we know the whole debate about corn competing for fuel and for food.
Yeah, we looked at that extremely carefully. And Brazilian sugarcane, in the context that where we created the fields, we're not displacing food to make that ethanol. There are other issues with corn that are separate in terms of the life cycle. Brazilian sugarcane is an extremely efficient and very preferred, actually, renewable material.